expressed on the following program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership.
Arizona, this is Brother Mike back on the radio. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the program. Today's Bible study. Another church scandal. Another mega church bites the dust. Today on Hardcore. Hey, please don't call anybody until the radio program's on. Fridays is our time together. These Friday programs are a little bit too testy for you to call somebody and introduce a new listener to the radio program. So let's just keep this one in the family today and see how this thing goes. All right? This is Brother Mike. I'm the professional counselor for the House of Healing in Central Phoenix. We're on 11th Street, just south of Indian School Road and west of the 51 freeway. We're downtown near the VA hospital in the heart of Maricopa County, Arizona. If you go to the website, hardcorechristianity.com, you'll see our services. We have 3 services a week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, teaching, healing, and deliverance at every service. Wednesday night's a great time to come if you've been abused. We have a service for people who have been child abuse, marital abuse, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. My teaching service for my radio listeners, Friday, 6:30 p.m. You can join us on our YouTube teaching channel. You can join us on Facebook off the website. You can sign up for our free seminar, the most controversial one I've ever done and ever will do. Islam is the seminar in May. You'll be very surprised to hear what I'm going to reveal about this interesting religion. Shocking. Radio programs are available 24/7, 365. SoundCloud.com/hardcore-Christianity. May 14th, 15th, Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock, I'll be holding a teaching service, a healing service, a deliverance service at the Church of Calvary in Tolleson, a Spanish church, 1010 North 95th Avenue, May 14th and 15th, Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m. Please bring somebody, whether they speak Spanish or English, who needs to be healed. Okay, another mega church, big trouble again. Here we go. Let's analyze this thing, and I'll explain to you what happened and how it happened, because I've had all these people come in to receive counseling from me over the years. Evangelists, missionaries, pastors, preachers, mega church people, pastors of mega churches, TV preachers. I mean, I've seen, you can't imagine the type of people I've seen come in to see me for counseling. Of course, it's all kept confidential. If you come in and see me for counseling, it's all kept confidential as well. But check it out. You see this article that came out in the paper? A lot of interesting things here. This one's a little different than most mega church scandals. They did a much better job with this one than most mega churches do. Quote, Darren Patrick, age 46, who founded the Journey megachurch in St. Louis in 2002, was fired from his position as pastor this week for what his church describes as deep historical patterns of sin. Patrick has also resigned from his position as vice president of the Acts 29 network, which plants churches globally. Quote, grievously, we need to share with you some very troubling news, the church said. In recent weeks, substantial allegations of pastoral misconduct arose against Pastor Darren Patrick and were eventually confirmed, the church elders said to the Journey megachurch family. Quote, this required that the Board of Elders place Pastor Darren on immediate paid leave and begin a formal process of deeper investigation. The findings of this investigation and further confession from Pastor Darren, combined with deep historical patterns of sin, led us to this heartbreaking decision to remove Pastor Darren from office at the Journey and require him to step down from all internal and external leadership positions. While Patrick's sins did not involve adultery, he did violate the high standard for elders in marriage through inappropriate meetings, conversation, and phone calls with 2 women. We did not arrive at this decision lightly, but rather agonizingly, with deep consternation for our brother. after many hours with Darren and his wife, Amy, praying diligently together, seeking professional counsel and outside assistance, and reflecting over a long and repeated pattern of breaking trust with other leaders. Quote, the board has been engaged for several years now in uncovering and confronting other deep sin patterns in Darren that do not reflect the biblical qualifications for an elder. And then the church listed in their announcement to their members some of the things he'd been violating. Here's one of them. Number one, abandonment of genuine biblical community. Number two, refusal of personal accountability. Number three, lack of self-control. 4, manipulation and lying. 5, domineering over those in charge. 6, misuse of power and authority. And the last one, a history of building his identity through ministry and media platforms. In a statement included in the letter to his former congregation, Patrick said he was devastated by his sins and apologized to the church. The elders said they tried repeatedly to help Patrick overcome his unbiblical lifestyle, but each time he promised to do better, he would eventually return to his sinful patterns. I am utterly horrified by the depth of my sin and devastated by the terrible effects of it on myself, my family, and so many others, including all of you, he said. I am so deeply and terribly sorry for the pain that my sin has caused you, as well as the broken trust that my sin has clearly produced. In short, I'm completely devastated, utterly broken by my sin, and in need of deep healing, unquote. The church then said, quote, each time these confrontations have been followed by initial confession with short-term changes, but quickly receded into unfulfilled promises and reversion to old patterns and reversion to broken trust with pastors and elders. Though we all stumble in many ways, those called to teaching and preaching are carry the weighty responsibility of setting an example of Christ-honoring lifestyle with consequences of stricter judgment. Despite previously failed attempts to help Patrick, the elders noted that they had committed to a long-term plan to restore him with outside help at this time. And the article goes on to say, I'm getting tired of reading that, they're involving counselors and other pastors, and they're working with an organization called Pastor Serve that helps churches restore leadership that falls. And I guess they do a pretty good job of it. And then the article goes on to say that the pastor was so grateful for all the love and support he had from the church, and he was so glad to have received their grace and their mercy and their patience, and the whole issue was handled very professionally. So that's kind of the end of the article, but let's go back to the roots of this problem. About 80 years ago, Satan moved through the church denominations in the United States, and he explained to them in no uncertain terms that deliverance was to be thrown out. Deliverance is thrown out. And he also explained to all the church denominations that healing was also to be thrown out. And then he explained to the churches and all the denominations that they were to water down their teaching and preach a seeker-friendly, gutless, loser-type gospel to make it very easy for people to get saved and easy to serve God with limited responsibility. Well, 90% of all the church denominations and all the churches told Satan, sounds good to us, and we're going to do exactly that. So now the system is set up so that when someone gets saved, and it's usually a very easy process, hey, just quickly say this sinner's prayer, oop, you're saved. Then that person decides that they want to serve God and go into the ministry. Well, they're not required to go through inner healing, physical healing, or deliverance in order to go into the ministry. They're basically required to go to Sunday school for a certain period of time, or go to Bible college, or go to a seminary, and graduate with some kind of certificate or a diploma, and then they're kind of able to go into the ministry. Or they've been saved 6 months, and because they have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy for God, somebody puts them in the ministry. What you're doing there is what's happened at this megachurch and what has happened at other megachurches here in town and other pastors that I've had come in for counseling. They carried their demons over from their sinful life into their Christian life because the devil doesn't allow deliverance anymore. He explained to the church denominations, and they foolishly believed him, that Christians can't have demons. And that once you get saved, all your demons just magically just disappear. And as a result of that, we have the church denominations, the religions, the churches, the charismatics, the Pentecostals, the prophetics, who ought to know better, infected with spirits from one end of the country to the other. And this man started a church, built a mega church, had all kinds of skills, but had never gone through deliverance to remove the unclean spirits of sexual perversion and sexual desire for adultery. If you don't get rid of the unclean spirits that push you to porn, to flirt, to lust, to masturbate, to fantasy sex, if you don't get rid of those demons from your sinful life and get them out of your body, they're going to torture you the entire time you're saved, and you're going to live the kind of a Christian life that I call a yo-yo Christian. You're always going to be up and down or in between. Because deliverance was thrown out, and it hasn't been at the House of Healing, we've had thousands of people delivered from these very spirits I'm talking about today. Unclean spirits of sexual perversion. I counsel people who are porn addicts. These are the same spirits they have that this pastor had at this church in St. Louis. They're the exact same demons. Pastor Darren has unclean spirits of lust. And since he didn't go through deliverance and nobody required him to do it, this horrible embarrassment has now hit this church, and it should have been handled right after he got saved. At the House of Healing, when you come, you go through deliverance, you go through inner healing, you go through healing, and you do that before you go into the ministry, so that this kind of condition doesn't manifest in your prayer group, in your home group, or in your life.
The views expressed on the preceding program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership. This program has been sponsored by Michael W. Smith.